Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and we just had the campfire chat for Diablo 4 Season 5, and holy crap, are uniques now amazing. In this video, we'll give a rundown of what was covered in the campfire chat. Season 5 is launching next week, August 6th, 10 a.m. Pacific. Some great changes have been made since PTR, and we'll delve into why I'm so excited about uniques now. Now, first off, one thing that the team addressed was about one piece of feedback about the PTR, and that was that we basically don't have or weren't given enough tools necessary to properly test things. Now, I put out a video a couple weeks ago expressing my frustration that I rage quit the PTR at the start because largely that I felt I could not properly test things. I had to put in so much time for so little testing in an already short window. And I know some people were like, oh, why are you getting upset? It's just a PTR. Things are going to be broken. The purpose is to find the broken things. I wasn't frustrated that things were broken or overpowered or whatever. It's that I couldn't actually test the things. And so the devs acknowledged that side of the feedback from the community, and that for future PTRs, they are working towards giving us better tools so that we don't have to spend hours just farming the stuff needed to then begin to test. Now, onto the Infernal Hordes. This is the new mode getting added to both the Season and Eternal Realm. This is getting added to the base game forever now, moving forward with Season 5. Infernal Hordes is this wave-based activity. You're fighting waves of monsters, mini-events are spawning at the end of the wave. You're then given a choice between 3 Banes and Boons coupled together that's going to modify how the rest of your run goes. Your objective is to collect something called Ether. At the end, you're going to fight the boss fight, after which you're going to use your collected Ether to select between different rewards. Based on PTR feedback, they're making a number of changes to basically supercharge Infernal Hordes. So first off, drop rates. To access the Infernal Hordes, you need compasses. They want us to get about 4 to 5 compasses per hour, meaning there's various ways to collect them. Many different kinds of gameplay are going to drop them at various rates, so you'll be playing the game normally, you're going to be collecting these infernal compasses, and again, 4 to 5 per hour, so, if a run takes you, I guess we'll see how long they take now, maybe 5 to 10 minutes would be my estimate. You can actually spend quite a bit of your time doing these Infernal Hordes. I know some people will still say, why gate us behind a key at all? If I just want to play Infernal Hordes, just let me play Infernal Hordes, and that's sensible. People have that feedback about a number of activities in the game, like, Nightmare Dungeons, why do I have to get keys? Why can't you just let me do it? That kind of stuff. But this is the meta that we're in, where various activities, be it boss runs, whatever, are all locked behind different keys, and whether that's good or bad is an entirely different discussion. For the time being, 4 to 5 per hour seems pretty reasonable. Then within the Infernal Hordes themselves, they're improving the pacing. First off, they're fixing the boss health bug that was applying to, I think, all the bosses in the game on PTR. Again, people were wondering, why are bosses such a slog to get through? What's going on? There was some boss PTR bug. That bug is gone, so you're not going to be spending 20 minutes doing the final boss fight. In fact, altogether, it was taking people up to an hour or more to complete Tier 8, the highest tier of Infernal Hordes. So that shouldn't be happening anymore. They're also increasing the rate at which the mini-events spawn, so there's going to be a lot more stuff going on within each wave. They're increasing the monster spawn rates. They're reducing the wave timer from 90 seconds to 60 seconds. Basically, just the intensity of everything is being cranked up. We're going to feel like I like the expression they use, we're spinning a bunch of plates. You can really rapidly reach a point where you're feeling overwhelmed by everything coming at you and everything to do, which I think is actually a great feeling to experience in this mode. Then they're also increasing how much Ether we get. They are scaling up the rewards. They are scaling down the cost to access the rewards. This was a huge issue. Things weren't rewarding enough, but that's fine. Again, that's what PTR is for. So hopefully now the rewards will be in a good place where we will feel like doing the Infernal Hordes is worth the time investment. The rewards will also scale more aggressively from Tier 1 to Tier 8. I'm hoping that's going to resolve the potential issue of, it's more efficient to farm a low tier over and over rather than push as far as I can push. So overall, Infernal Hordes looking to be an improved experience versus what was on PTR. Do I think it could be made into something even better with more changes? Yes. For now, this is the scope of what they could do within the time to Season 5, but hopefully in the future we're going to see even more additions to make this mode even more expansive and fun. Then we got some information on the seasonal updates. So the Iron Wolf reward track that we had in Season 4, we're getting a new updated version of that for Season 5. So yes, we will still be able to farm up all of our Resplendent Sparks by making more and more characters and just going along that reward track. In Season 4, we earned our Iron Wolf rewards by doing Helltide. Now in Season 5, it's going to be by defeating any kind of tough enemy that isn't just a regular monster, basically. So bosses, champions, elites, all that kind of stuff is going to earn you progression along that track, so you can be doing pretty much any activity in the game and you're going to progress. Apparently even strongholds will contribute. Also, this wasn't super clear, but whenever you pick up Reputation, you're also going to be getting some kind of a small XP boost. I'm not sure if that meant you're going to get like a temporary buff to your XP acquisition rate, or a permanent buff to your XP acquisition rate, or just a lump sum of XP all of a sudden. If I had to guess, I think it sounds like we're getting just like a permanent XP buff, a small but permanent XP buff. So you're encouraged to do your reputation system in order to get more and more of that XP buff, so you level up faster and faster. They're also placing within the reward track reputation system where you are unlocking your different seasonal quests. This is just a signaling thing, so now we know, okay, the next step in this seasonal quest line is going to come at this amount of reputation. Now there's two separate quest lines. There's the quest line that introduces the Infernal Hordes. That is coming to both Eternal and Seasonal. And then there's the Seasonal quest line, which is something in addition, which is only on Seasonal. Then we're also getting something called Hellbreach dungeons. These are basically micro dungeons that are going to be new experiences to go through, and they're baby versions, I guess you can say, of the Infernal Hordes mode, or they're ways to introduce you to Infernal Hordes. Only available in World Tier 1 and World Tier 2. They're going to present a new way to level up in the season. They're also a great source of leveling up your reputation system. Great place to get powerful items. And they apparently were originally modeled off of the Domhain, or the Dopamine Tunnels, that dungeon that was basically the best way to level up until Season 4. I certainly hope that these do end up being the most effective way to level up in Season 5. Whenever a new season launches, I always like to see a new way to level up. So you get a little bit of a different gameplay experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be the absolute best way to level up, but that it's at least competitive. Now we're getting a bunch of general game updates. In Helltide, Baneful Hearts, they're not going to drop as often as in Season 4, but they're going to drop more often than on PTR. Profane Mine Cages are coming back in Season 5. They'll be seasonal only, but now you can stack them up to 3 times to make monsters up to 30 levels higher than you in Helltide. Legendary drop rates are getting buffed for monsters above level 100. Reiterating some other things we've already said before, enchanting will no longer cost Angel's Breath. Crowd control effects on players are being nerfed, so in the past, on average, you'd be CC'd, hard CC'd for 2.5 seconds. That's going to drop down now to an average of 1.5 seconds. Also, you can use your potions now while you are CC'd. World bosses now have some mechanic called Resilience. They didn't go into details onto how it works, but basically it just sort of normalizes player damage better, such that world bosses will not be eliminated within a fraction of a second now. It's going to take longer. This apparently was actually in effect on PTR. They just forgot to mention it to us, so I do remember experiencing that. I don't know that this actually solves any problem. I don't know that this is actually a good change. In my opinion, the problem is that at World Tier 4, you have players at drastically different power levels in the same fight, such that the world boss for one tier of player is a complete joke, both from a damage output and a damage able to sustain standpoint. And for another tier of player, that same world boss is deadly to them and will take them a while to defeat. And so now, for the player that is way over-geared for the fight, now it's just a longer fight, but it's still going to be just as mundane because there's still basically no chance of dying. Then in the pit bosses are now going to deal 66% less damage across the board, huge nerf to their damage. But there's going to be this new mechanic where when you are hit by one of the shadow boss's effects, you're going to get this stack of a debuff. And you can get up to 3 stacks of this debuff. Every stack that you have will increase the damage you take from all sources. And once you get to 3 stacks, well, now you're taking the same amount of damage as you were taking in Season 4. This removes some of the one-shotting that was happening, or that players felt that they were experiencing without stacking ridiculous amounts of life. But it's still giving you a warning. It's like, hey, you got 1 chance, you got 2 chances, 3 strikes and you're out. They're making some modifications to group play in pits. Currently on live servers, the person who opens the pit gets X amount of rewards. of masterworking materials, and everyone else gets about half of that amount. They are changing that now that everyone gets the same amount, everyone gets the maximum amount, basically. Okay, so the problem with the way things are on live servers is it disincentivizes group play. If you can take basically the same amount of time to do this run solo or in a group, then why play in a group? If you're not group leader, you're just going to get less materials. Even if you're rotating through, overall, you're netting fewer materials, so just do it solo. Now we're swinging things in the other direction, though. Now, group play is favored all the time, because why not? Why would it not be? And once again, I don't understand why we've moved away from the system that we had in Diablo 3. And I would just love for the dev team to address this. Like, there's probably something that I'm not seeing, so I just want to see an explanation. We went through trial and error in Diablo 3 before reaching a system where, to enter a Greater Rift, everyone has to pay a key. Everyone gets the same rewards, everyone has to pay the same cost to enter. Why can't we just have that in D4? Everyone pays the cost, everyone gets the reward. That was the best balance between solo play and group play. So I just want to know, why can that not work in D4? What was the problem with that system? Then, in case you missed it, wonderful quality of life change coming with the season. You can resummon Uber bosses without having to reset the instance. The altar just comes right back. That is amazing. Beast and Ice is going to be easier to summon now. You don't need to get the sigil. Varshan, you only need to get a heart now. You don't have to get 50 different materials. All ladder bosses now will no longer drop rare items, cluttering up your inventory for no reason. They're going to drop gold instead of the rare items, so now you're just getting legendaries, uniques, and mythic uniques. Tormented bosses now drop 3 times as many materials as a regular boss, and the cost to some of the tormented boss has gone from 2 to 1 Stygian stone. This makes the tormented bosses so much more efficient. Assuming you can handle them, you really want to save your materials for them. Then, on live servers, currently the XP bonus that you get for fighting higher level monsters caps out at monsters that are 10 levels higher than you, which is why whenever you are grinding XP, the most effective thing to do is to fight monsters no more than 10 levels higher than you. They are raising that cap up to 30 levels higher than you now to coincide with the profane mine cage stacking up to 3 times. This is going to drastically change the leveling meta. We might potentially now be leveling against monsters that are significantly higher level than us. That covered the general changes, and they got into class changes, and apparently there's a huge amount of changes there such that the game balance will feel completely different from the PTR. And the first thing that they highlighted was that barbs are too strong, so they were looking to bring down the power of the barb and raise the power of everyone else. First, they fixed some bugs, which results in a change to necromancers that might actually be overpowered. The aspect of the shielding storm was supposed to give you barrier, scaling based on your max life, but instead it was scaling based on base life. Now that they've fixed this bug, they're actually concerned that it's going to be too powerful. They also fixed a barbarian bug that'll make dust devil builds a bit stronger. Now, when it comes to balancing the classes and finding ways to bring the other classes more in line with the power of the barb, what they did not want to do is lose class identity. They don't want to just give every class 4 items. They prefer asymmetric design, and I gotta applaud them for sticking with that. It's definitely more interesting. It's just vastly more difficult. They highlighted that barbs basically have 2 class mechanics in that they have their 4 weapon slots and they have their expertise. So their approach to bringing balance here is to 1, nerf barbs, 2, to buff all the other class mechanics to bring them more in line, or just raise them in general, and 3, to make changes to core stats. And we spoke about this in a previous video. But before we get more into that, the big overhauls that they want to do to the class mechanics, those are going to be coming in Vessel of Hatred. So Season 6 plus, we're getting maybe some changes now in the meantime, but really, they want to do a big overhaul to both the cool factor and the power of the other class mechanics. Meanwhile, they're making changes to how core stats scale damage. Currently, you gain 1% more damage for every 10 core stat in your class. For barbs, that'll remain the same. For rogues, now you're going to get 1% more damage per 9 core stat, and then for all other classes, it's going to be 1% per 8 core stat. That's a significant buff to all the other classes. Now next, they're nerfing pretty much all the Barb key passives, and it's because they recognize that Barb has some of the strongest key passives in the game, and there's no reason that they should. So those are being brought down in power, but to compensate, they are buffing the power of some underperforming Barb builds, including Hoda and Upheaval. So they recognize that they're kind of globally bringing down the power of the Barb, but they know that that hurts the suboptimal builds too much, so they're raising those suboptimal builds too, which is great. Then Sorcerer, they recognized everyone complaining about the Sorcerer. Sorcerer's getting some massive buffs. A lot of those come in the form of unique items, but even just baseline. All their core and mastery skills are getting between 15 and 20% damage buffs. They're getting multiple defensive buffs in their Paragon trees, their legendary Paragon nodes. There's a lot of caps on those. Those caps are being raised, sometimes doubled. So you're able to scale much more damage now in the Paragon tree. Druid's getting a bunch of quality of life and damage buffs. Similar to Sorcerer, we're seeing a rise on the damage caps on those legendary Paragon nodes. They say Rogue's in a very good spot. They are not making too many changes to the Rogue. They actually gave a preview of the updated Wind Force, which looks sick. It gives move speed now. Also, instead of knocking back enemies, which is kind of frustrating and not really desired, even though it is, yes, historically accurate to the Wind Force, it is now giving knock down, which is fantastic. For the Necro, we're seeing a bunch of buffs to blood builds, tempering recipes, Paragon nodes. Also, Lucky Hit is basically being buffed across the board. It's going to be a lot easier now for Necros to hit, to land lucky hits. Previously, they had to really rely on Corpse Explosion to do that. Now, this should really open up things. And then the most exciting changes for me, nearly every unique in the game is getting overhauled. They only showed us 3 uniques per class and 3 generic uniques, but we can find all of the changes in the patch notes, which they've already posted. But right away at baseline, they just took the base unique effect of every unique. In general, those have been buffed. And then they really wanted to lean into whatever the fantasy or flavor of every unique was and double down on that. No, they are not letting us temper on uniques. No, we will not feel like we need to. In cases where it made sense, they actually took existing temper recipes and just made them innate affixes on uniques. And they even did things in places where, you know, this is something that's similar to a tempering recipe, but you normally cannot get, you know, a temper on this skill, for instance. Now on a unique, you can. So there's a lot of really cool effects on uniques now. Some uniques are getting different inherent affixes. Items normally only have that one inherent affix. Now, with a unique, you can get potentially more than one. You can get different inherent affixes on a base piece of gear. You can get a higher roll than you would normally be able to get. They basically want uniques to be able to break all the rules of itemization. So higher tempering affixes, higher base rolls than you can get elsewhere. Sometimes a single stat on a unique will be able to rival an entire legendary aspect in terms of its build potential. We'll go over a couple specific items real quick here, but I'm just going to give my thoughts first and foremost. I love these changes. When D4 launched, I'm pretty sure I said in my review that one of the things that, you know, one of my criticisms was that I just felt items weren't all that exciting, or affixes on items in general weren't all that exciting. I think tempering really helped with that. Now we are adding these exciting, really cool stats. And now looking at these uniques, I'm feeling genuinely excited looking at these uniques and thinking about build possibilities. These are fun, they are flavorful, and, you know, they make me excited. I'm really glad they didn't just go with the easy, let us temper uniques option, and instead reworked every unique into something cool and exciting. And now we'll have to see how they all fit into the meta. Are we going to be fully kitted in uniques? Are they still not going to be good enough? Is a unique going to be a best in slot everywhere? I think the design intent is to land with every build having 2 to 4 uniques is sort of what they've expressed, and it would not surprise me to see that turn out to be the case, but time will tell. So going over some examples here, Penitent Greaves, you can see now it has 2 inherent affixes, and the move speed buff that Evade is granting lasts for 2 seconds rather than 1 second, which is what you normally see on the inherent affix of boots. The Fists of Fate rework might take a moment here to recognize what's going on, but look at those stat ranges. Look at the affix ranges. That attack speed can roll from either 0.1 to 8.7. Same with pretty much everything. You can get a complete trash roll or a crazy, crazy good roll. And that's because this item is all about RNG. So potentially a really well-rolled Fists of Fate. Wow, is that going to be a best in slot item for a lot of builds? And it's probably going to be worth a ton if you trade. For the Grandfather, by the way, they're calling Uber Uniques Mythic Uniques now, and they're purple and have a purple beam, which is wonderful. They've moved the Ignores durability loss down from a regular affix into an inherent affix, and this is so that we no longer have those unfortunate situations where when you roll a greater affix, you can get ignored durability loss, or when you masterwork, you can crit on ignores durability loss, because that does nothing. And now, because you cannot actually ever masterwork or get a greater affix on an inherent, it's getting that out of the way. For the Barbarian, Battle Trance is now giving you bonuses to 2 different passives, and now its unique power doesn't just give you attack speed, it also gives you a damage multiplier. Ring of the Ravenous now gives you ranks to rend, it doubles rend's duration, and its unique effect can now apply 4 times as often. Fields of Crimson now has enhanced rupture explosion size. For Sorceress, the Staff of Endless Rage now seems like an awesome fireball build staff. 55% faster fireball projectile speed. It gets a tempering recipe to cast fireball twice and gives you +6 ranks to fireball. Think about rolling that on a greater affix and then masterworking that. Holy fireballs, Batman. Then you combine those with the Gloves of the Illuminator, up to 15% fireball attack speed, and +2 mana when a fireball explodes. And again, think about a greater affix and a temper on that +2 mana. The amount of sustain you can build with that. Adam Jackson was saying that you can really fill up your screen with fireballs now. Blue Rose now is going to make your ice spikes explode twice, that little tempering recipe chance, right? For the Druid, the Waxing Gibbous now gives you ranks to Shred and Toxic Claws, and it makes it such that when you cast Blood Howl, you gain stealth. Currently, the unique effect gives you stealth, but that only works against groups of enemies and it falls off against bosses. Now it's giving you a way to sustain that against single targets as well. The Great Staff of the Crone now makes Storm Strike chain to +2 targets, and the Storm's Companion unique pants now actually buff a Spirit Boon, plus up to 85% lucky hit chance for the Pack Leader Spirit Boon. I love seeing all these interesting interactions that they're leaning into. For the Rogue, check out this Eagle Horn. It now is a penetrating shot item. You couldn't use it in Season 4 because you needed those temper recipes. Well, now they just gave it to you. Chance to cast Pen Shot twice, +4 to Pen Shot. They're even giving us plus to Malice. Word of Hakan makes it actually seem viable to do a Rain of Arrows build now. Plus 300% ultimate damage. Chance for Rain of Arrows to cast twice. No temper can even do that. Massive Rain of Arrows cooldown reduction. Saboteur's Signet Ring leaning way into grenades. Huge grenade damage buff. Stun grenade damage size buff. You now gain energy when a stun grenade explodes. When any of them explode, you drop a whole cluster of stun grenades at once. And they're also changing it from a flurry-based trigger to now just any core skill. For the Necromancer, Kruor's Embrace Blood Surge is now going to drain more times on elites. This is not for the explosion, but from the drain effect. Death Speaker's Pendant, +1 essence per enemy drained by Blood Surge. Also, +5 to Blood Surge. Lots of love for Blood Necros. Then Greaves of the Empty Tomb. Holy crap. So first off, Evade leaves behind Desecrated Ground now. +4 max evade charges. Normally the max is 3. We're getting Sever size, Sever projectiles, all those tempers. +6 to Reaper's Pursuit. That's the move speed passive. We're zooming now, boys. And then look how this synergizes with a new aspect that we're getting. Aspect of Creeping Mist. You gain evade cooldown reduction, and you can now evade during Blood Mist, traveling twice as far. Entering or exiting Blood Mist resets your evade cooldown. So we have 5 evade charges with the Greaves of the Empty Tomb. We can evade 5 times, enter Blood Mist, evade 5 more times, exit Blood Mist, evade 5 more times. Necros are absolutely zooming in Season 5. The devs heard that we want more mobility on Necros, well, here it is. And again, this is just a sample. They've updated almost every unique in the game, full patch notes. I'm gonna dive into, I'm probably gonna have another video, or I'll include it in my Saturday wrap-up video, more fun things that I've found here. But again, overall, this is the season of uniques. I guarantee you there's going to be some unique somewhere in there that's got an update that's going to be exciting for you. In the Q&A, the devs were asked about whether there'd be an overhaul to the Paragon system. They stated that there will be changes to Paragon, but they're not going to be talking about them yet. I'm expecting that talk's going to come when they're talking about Vessel of Hatred. Similarly about social features, they said social feature changes are coming, but they're not ready to talk about them now, but we'll hear about them soon. Overall, there's 50 new legendary and unique items coming in Season 5. That's on top of all the reworks. On the topic of skill reworks, the dev said that there's an interest internally from the team to make these skill upgrades more impactful, like After you pick enhanced skill, you have one of the two options. They want those to kind of feel more impactful. This is of interest to them, but they have nothing to announce right now. Also, on the topic of bricking with tempering, we are getting a bit of a buff there, a bit of a quality of life change. Basically, with Season 5, for every greater affix you have on a piece of gear, you will get 1 additional temper reroll. While some might say it's not enough, hey, it's better than no changes, so it's appreciated. So that's going to wrap up my video on this update, feeling very positive, even if in theory the changes to the Infernal Hordes turn out to not make it that exciting. Just the uniques by themselves, all these sweeping changes and the balance changes, the game being in a better balance state where it's not just, are you making a barbarian or a barbarian? Overall, things looking really good. And again, we're having a pretty short season, 2 months before Vessel of Hatred launches in early October. But what do you folks think? Sound off in the comments. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my supporters. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more Diablo content.